When is Dame Dash gonna be honest about why Jay-Z actually left him and stop trying to recreate history and really manipulate the younger generation into believing these lies? Jay-Z was also a part of Roc-A-Fella leadership, and Dame was acting like this was only his decision, basically trying to treat Jay-Z like Jay-Z was just a rapper.
In the ruthless world of hip-hop empires where millions are made off beats, branding, and shaky alliances, no story hits harder than the rise and split of Jay-Z and Dame Dash. Two men who once stood shoulder to shoulder, building an unstoppable empire only for one to climb into billionaire status while the other slipped into lawsuits, fading fame, and crushing debt.
When is Dame Dash gonna be honest about why Jay-Z actually left him and stopped trying to recreate history and really manipulate the younger generation into believing these lies? Everyone knows when Jay-Z and Dame Dash were the presidents and all this kind of stuff of Roc-A-Fella, Dame Dash brought in Cameron, Dipset basically, and said he was going to make them vice presidents. Mind you,
this wasn't just another business breakup. It was a saga of pride, loyalty, and the brutal price of success. When Jay-Z cut Dame Dash loose, it wasn't a simple fallout. It was a chess move, a masterstroke that cracked their bond wide open and catapulted Jay-Z into rare air few rappers or moguls have ever reached. Meanwhile, Dame was left staring at the ghosts of what could have been.
And that's why in Jay-Z's songs, he says, I'm a businessman. Not only am I the businessman, I'm a businessman, because Dame Dash was trying to play him out like he was just a rapper. And
fighting to hold on to the empire they once shared. Roll it back to the late 90s and early 2000s, Dame Dash was the definition of hip-hop hustle. Along with Kareem Biggs, Burke, and Jay-Z, he co-founded Roc-A-Fella Records, flipping it from a gritty independent label into a cultural juggernaut. Dame wasn't just a co-founder, he was the mouthpiece, the deal maker, the bold visionary pushing into fashion, film, and lifestyle before it was the norm.
And Jay-Z had to let it be known, no baby boy, I'm also the businessman. Dame Dash bringing in people like a Cameron who Jay-Z didn't even get along with and tried to act like, yeah, he gonna be on this label. And
Jay-Z brought unmatched lyrical firepower and worldwide fame, while Biggs kept the operations tight and steady. Together, they weren't just successful, they were untouchable. The climb was nothing short of meteoric. Roc-A-Fella was born in 1994 out of rejection. When the big labels turned their backs on Jay-Z, Dame Dash stepped up, betting everything on him when nobody else would. With Kareem Biggs, Burke putting up the cash, they scraped together resources and dropped Reasonable Doubt, a debut that mixed gritty street tales with polished, radio-ready shine. By the early 2000s, Roc-A-Fella locked in a distribution deal with Def Jam, and just like that, they blasted into the mainstream. Dame's hustle was stamped on every corner of the empire. In 1999, he launched Roc-A-Ware.
And that's why Jay-Z, once he saw how Dame was moving, bringing in a whole crew that Jay-Z didn't even get along with, that's when he separated from your ass, because you was doing shiesty things. You were trying to act like Jay-Z was your worker and as if y'all weren't equal. So Jay-Z stepped off and said, hey, if I'm just a rapper, go find another one. And you ain't been able to find another one since. And that's why y'all are mad. Listen.
More than a clothing line, it became a streetwear dynasty pulling in hundreds of millions. He even stepped into Hollywood, producing cult classics like Paid in Full, planting Roc-A-Fella deeper into the culture. At the same time, Jay-Z leveled up from a hungry rapper to a global icon, turning tracks like Hard Knock Life into anthems that echoed in arenas across the world. Together, Jay and Dame looked like the ultimate tag team, vision and execution locked in perfect sync. But behind the champagne toasts and diamond plaques, cracks were already starting to show. The breaking point came when Dame Dash made a power move that flipped everything upside down. Without asking, he brought in Cameron and the whole Diplomat squad, even handing Cam an executive title like it was nothing. Bold, yes. Reckless, absolutely. Jay-Z, the face of Roc-A-Fella, the superstar who carried the brand to global status, had zero say in the decision. Dame was moving like the label was his personal kingdom, treating Jay not like a partner, but like just another artist on the roster.
Listen, Jay-Z is not perfect by far, but I remember what happened back then. I seen how things moved back then, and Dame was moving funny, and that's why Jay-Z left your ass with Cam and them, and you never went anywhere after that. And that's why you're out here in 2024 still talking about some shit that happened 22 years ago. Have a good day.
For Jay, who had already shown he was bigger than rap alone, that was pure disrespect. The tension didn't stay locked behind office doors. It spilled all the way into the music, raw and loud. Jay-Z, always the master strategist, didn't waste time yelling in interviews or throwing shade in back rooms, and he let the bars talk. On joints like Takeover, his lyrics weren't just rhymes, they were daggers, cutting two ways at once, part rap battle, part corporate clapback. Every line felt like a warning shot. He wasn't only defending his spot as an MC, he was making it crystal clear to Dame that he wasn't about to play anyone's pawn in some sloppy, half-baked power grab. To Jay, the booth was the battlefield, and his pen was the weapon of choice. Meanwhile, the whispers around the industry weren't whispers anymore. They were turning into open conversations. People close to Roc-A-Fella kept saying Dame's arrogance had gone completely unchecked. He was brushing off Jay's input like it didn't matter, making deals solo, moving without agreements, and walking around like his word was law carved in stone. And the more Roc-A-Fella grew, the more Dame's ego ballooned.
Let me ask you, from your point of view, do you ever foresee a future where...
No.
No? Hove and Dame never speak?
Yeah. No.
We're talking wild parties on a Tuesday night, loud public outbursts that made headlines, and non-stop flexing in boardrooms. Every flashy move chipped away at the trust that once made the label unbreakable. Loyalty, the glue that built the empire, was no longer solid. It was cracking, splintering, falling apart piece by piece until nothing felt steady anymore. Jay-Z didn't rant, scream, or slam doors, and that was never his playbook. Instead, he watched in silence, observed every misstep, and calculated every response with surgical precision. To him, Dame's overconfidence wasn't just annoying, it was reckless, a real threat to everything they had built. Partnerships can only breathe if trust is alive, and once that trust died, Jay knew the clock was ticking. So he started plotting, moving like a chess master, mapping out 20 steps ahead, and when the time came, he was ready to strike. By the early 2000s, the split wasn't just possible, it felt destined, written in the stars. Then, in 2004, Def Jam came calling with the ultimate offer, the presidency. It was power, legacy, and leverage all wrapped up in one deal. Jay didn't hesitate for a second. He took the throne, and with that one move, Roc-A-Fella, as the world had known it, was finished. Jay locked in control of his masters, laid the first bricks for Roc Nation, and kept stacking win after win. Dame, on the other hand, was left outside his own creation.
I feel like a line was crossed, man. Too much.
You don't see no future where that happens.
Too much.
Here's the reason why I asked. If you said you'll get him backstage now.
No, I didn't say I'd get him backstage. Only if the comfort level was at yellow.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, I put him in row 12.
You said you asked first.
Yeah, I put him in row 12.
He had you taking him backstage, holding him by his hand, walking him in.
Angry, bitter, and firing off public shots with no way to walk back through those doors. The empire he helped build no longer had a seat for him at the table. But let's be real, their clash was never just about beats or bars. It was always about power and how two men chose to wield it. Jay's game was rooted in patience, strategy, and long-term vision. Dame's game thrived on bravado, loud confrontations, and endless loyalty tests. That kind of fire, sure, it burns hot, it burns fast, but eventually it burns out. And when the smoke cleared, it was obvious. Jay's way was the one built for the marathon, not the sprint. After the fallout, Jay-Z's climb turned into nothing short of a modern legend. He didn't just stay in music, he spread out like an empire builder. He pushed into fashion with Roc-A-Wear, moved into sports with Roc Nation Sports, and doubled down on tech and streaming with Tidal. He even flipped luxury liquor into another empire, with Douce and Armand de Brignac pouring millions into his pockets. In 2021, he shocked the business world when he sold half of Armand de Brignac to LVMH in a deal reportedly worth $315 million. By 2023, Forbes crowned him hip-hop's very first billionaire, and by 2025, he reached a jaw-dropping net worth of $2.5 billion. Jay-Z didn't just survive the Roc-A-Fella breakup, he flipped it into the launch pad that made him the richest musician alive, a mogul untouchable at the top. Dame Dash's path couldn't have been more different, and it was harsh. After the breakup, he chased fresh ventures with the same loud energy. New labels, streaming platforms, fashion brands. But none of them stuck, none of them carried the same magic. One by one, the ventures collapsed. Lawsuits piled high, the IRS came knocking, and the headlines started shifting from his victories to his struggles.
Niggas cross the line that's no return, bro. You know, them art of dialogue interviews, like, I don't know how much niggas get paid for that shit or whatever, but it's like when you speak on personal issues, a man's kids, a man's integrity, and you know niggas going through cases and shit, and you speaking on that, it's like, it's no return from that, bro. It's like, that's the button. But they say George Bush the button, that's the button, nigga.
Critics like Lance Rivera have called out Jay-Z for not aiding Dash amid his woes, invoking their shared history.
Then the knockout punch came in 2025. Dame filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Florida, admitting to over $25 million in debt while holding barely $4,000 in assets. The rights to his crown jewel, paid in full, didn't just slip through his fingers. They were auctioned off and scooped up by none other than 50 Cent, a move that felt like salt in the wound. The man once known as hip-hop's loudest, boldest mogul now found himself broke, venting on Instagram lives and podcasts, clinging to memories of what once was instead of stacking up new empires. The fall was as loud as the rise, but this time, there was no comeback on the horizon. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's trajectory was the total opposite. His empire only kept multiplying. He grew Roc Nation into a global powerhouse, expanded into tech startups, partnered with the NFL, and even jumped into the booming cannabis game. Jay didn't just make it without Dame, he flourished, showing the world that the split wasn't a setback, it was freedom. But their saga is bigger than just two men. It's a blueprint for hip-hop and business itself. Ego can light the fire, but unchecked pride will burn everything down. Dame relied on loud loyalty tests and raw bravado, while Jay leaned on humility, strategy, and patience. The results spoke volumes. Dame once boasted, "I made Jay-Z." But Hov's legendary response was simple and lethal. I heard niggas saying they made Hov say, "Okay, so make another Hov." That wasn't just rap bravado, it was fact. You can't clone another Jay-Z. In the end, their story reflects the very DNA of hip-hop's growth, from gritty street grind to billion-dollar boardroom moves. Dame Dash embodied the raw, fearless energy that sparks revolutions. Jay-Z embodied the discipline and adaptability that keep them alive. Together, they created a dynasty. A part one etched his name into history as a billionaire icon, while the other became a cautionary tale whispered across the industry. The lesson is timeless. In life and business, what you plant is what you harvest. Jay sowed seeds of vision and collaboration, and they grew into empires. Dame sowed resentment and ego, and the weeds choked his legacy. The outcome today is louder than any diss track. Like, subscribe, share, drop a comment, and I'll catch you on the next one.